What's up, everyone? Welcome to the latest episode of Power Spike. Joining us is special guest of North American League of Legends royalty. It is Cubby joining Yamato and Jamada for this week's episode. Welcome, Cubby. Are you ready for some Power Spiking?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's been fun. I haven't watched a ton of games in EU this split, so I've been trying to do some catch up and finally got into some playoff games this past weekend. So we had some. I don't know if they were good across the globe. I think we had some regions where they were good or not, but excited to talk about it with you guys.
Yeah. Yamato, away from, I guess, match fitness, getting back into co-stream fitness. How's it?
Calling me fat, bro?
I was about to say, you call him a bum.
No, I'm just saying match fitness is different.
Is no contact lenses for the show, unshaved beard, peaking in body fat, bro. I'm at like 29.6. I'm cooked, bro. That was maxing, bro.
And Jamada, your numbers going through the roof. Saw that you had huge subscription numbers from since you started this journey. How's it been, man?
Yeah, it's been good. Those numbers aren't the numbers I'm even concerned with this week, if we're being honest about it. But I'm sure we'll talk about it. We'll get there. But yeah, the content stuff's been good. I've been enjoying it. And yeah, the leagues have been kind of banging this week.
It's been a good start to the year. With good matches, upsets, and some mismanagement. And we'll start with one of them in Europe. In Tier 1. There we go. Now you know which one we're talking about. This week's first topic is everything is on fire. And we're talking about rules. We're talking about technology that was brought to make things clearer. And if you're a fan of soccer or football, better known, and you hate VAR, this one's for you. This is Everything's on Fire, the MKOI pause. Let's get into it. So in LEC, we've got our playoffs underway for LEC Versus, and there was a situation in the bot lane where a Chronobreak came out. Jojo calls a pause after he rides a Talia wall to try and help save Merwin in a kind of gank that Karzi just blows him up against Vitality. They pause it, and you're not 100%. It's not a very clear pause. It wasn't like, hey, this thing is wrong. It took a couple of watches, but it looked like he jumps off the wall and gets like stun locked for like less than half a second, maybe a quarter of a second, and throws a threaded volley that ends up being a little bit short, misses one of the threaded volleys, and it causes a pause. And the whole conundrum here is that the bug was a bug, but the point in which you chronobreaked beforehand led to a completely different result, which was Karzi gets the kill in the past one, Merwin dies, then Jojo dies afterwards because he rides the wall into this area and jumps off, gets stun locked a little bit without anything happening. And then the chronobreak, now the gank and the positioning of the Vitality players is now known by MKOI. They know what's going to happen. And then in the remake, they outplay the gank, they get the kills, and Vitality are just omega tilted, rightfully so, because there was a bug, but the end result of it ends up benefiting MKOI massively for a part that the bug had nothing to do with, which was the information of a gank coming on in. This had a lot of people diving on into what was right, what was wrong. Cadril went ahead and did a multi-step replay of it and tried to figure it out. So that's where we start. What do we do when, by the letter of the law, this was a bug and was correct, but the chronobreak just broke the game here? And Jamada, let's start with you on this one, because I know that you had a couple things to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just want to get a couple of things out of the way, right? Should it have been a chronobreak? Yes, absolutely. Like, if this bug has occurred, then there's no arguing that chronobreak should always go through. The other thing as well, Vitality still had enough of a lead that this chronobreak isn't necessarily the game-breaking thing, right? I think there's a level of extreme ownership that needs to be taken for Vitality. They have enough of a lead to close out that game. That said, my issue is there's about 3 different spots prior to that where they decided to chronobreak it, which for clarity, and I all of us have worked in broadcast at one point or another, we all know the HUD is not always perfectly synced up to the actual in-game timer. So the in-game timer that they gave to us as information was 28:36. At that specific timer that we see on the screen, Kazi is Valked in already. The TPs are coming down. I think Jojo might even be finished with his TP already at this point. The play has to happen. It has to happen. But at this timer, champions are hitting each other. Now, it's my understanding that chrono breaks, when you chrono break back, it's supposed to be what's in the rulebook I now know is called
neutral state.
It's called a dead ball state, but it's supposed to be a neutral state. Nothing is happening, etc., etc. And that's where my issue comes in, and that's the critique for me of this chrono break is how of the 3 to 4 different places that we could have chrono braked prior to this in the 15-second passage before this play is being committed to, do we land on a position where both teams almost still have to commit to the play, where the TPs are still coming down, where Kazi is in the middle of hitting Merwin. And of course, because we can't rewind real time, now Merwin can react to the play significantly better on the second time around. That's the part that's just bizarre to me. You could, if you look at the tape, you could go back to, I think it's 26, 10 seconds, where Merwin has already flashed out and Vitality are walking away from the play. And if MKOI want to commit their TP, they can. And if Vitality want to commit their TP, they can as well. That would be an infinitely closer to neutral / deadball state than the chrono break we got. So for me, that's where I'm just confused about how this decision came about from the officials, because normally I'm actually quite on the side of the officials. They're really good at their jobs 95 to 100% of the time. But this is one of those positions for me where it's such a difficult decision for me to defend, where I can look at this and with a straight face go, this decision made sense. Like, you've put them in a position where they have to still commit to the play. It's not a clear dead ball state. And there were several dead ball states where teams don't have to recommit to that play if they don't want to. That's the strange thing for me.
Yeah, Yamato, get in there.
No, I agree with Jamara. Like, I think it's just so silly because what the issue is, it's like technically it's like really slow, and also the referees don't know all the bugs and don't know the rules. There are bugs that are informed bugs where players are aware of the bugs, and if they've been reported, then it's stated in like the bug list that if it occurs, you need to play on because you are aware of it.
Just to chip in, by the way, this is a known bug because this happened earlier in the split as well too.
It was Jojo that paused for another.
Yeah,
if it's a known bug, it's even crazier because then Riot, like LEC, has really dropped the ball, because if it's a bug that has happened, it should be on the bug list, and Riot should make a decision regarding like surrounding this. Because there are a lot of bugs with champions, and you just get told it's like you just have to accept it. There were like bugs in the past, like you're not allowed to use water walking on Rise competitively, for example, because there was this thing where you could walk into river and like regen your mana if you went in and out because the AP converted. You could use it on live, but people were not aware of it. But you were not allowed to use water walking on Rise in competitive play, as an example. The fact that it didn't make the list, if it was a known bug, that's really crazy. I think for Vitality side, they should for sure pause. The pause rules are also stupid. I tell my players every time I've worked in a team, if you even suspect something, you should pause. There's many times where players have been wrong. Like I remember there was this time where Niski paused because he thought he couldn't press his W as Irelia, but he was just CC'd and died. So he just paused the broadcast for 15 minutes for something that wasn't a bug. And there's no punishment. There's no nothing. There's no penalty. So obviously, from a competitive standpoint, you should always pause if you think and suspect something is wrong, because players obviously can't keep track of every interaction in the game possible. So it's like the Fnatic pause. It's like I have been a problem in my past teams, so I apologize for that. In my mind, I think it's also weird. In the past, I agree with Jamala. It's like it's just when pauses happen and chrono breaks happen, they usually like return you 10 seconds ahead of time, because it's so easy to just look at the play. The players are looking at the play, and the challenge of League is that you're supposed to real time make good decisions. If you get to like analyze a frame for 20 minutes or even 1 minute or even 30 seconds, that's enough for you to make to optimize the play regardless of what level you're on, in my opinion. And in this particular case, Midwin just had to walk away. You could also say, I don't know what the exact frame was, because if it's true that it's like when he Valkyrie's in, then it's ridiculous what LEC has done, bro.
The exact time of that 36 is eaten up almost entirely by Kazi Valking in. So it's really hard to say.
Because I thought, because it's like you return back to the game, right? And in the replay that they show, it kind of, there's like a choppy moment. And I think there's like a moment where Mirwin is in fog of war. He enters like the bush at the golem spot. And I thought this is the point that they chronobreak from. Because I do think if this is the case, I don't think that like Kazi looked at this situation and actually made the best possible decision. Because if 100%. In that moment, that play, if Mirwin plays correctly, they can never kill him, right? So they should just walk away off of the TP. So if Vitality were in that pause state and they could have walked away from that play, they would have won that game. Because I agree, Vitality also dropped the ball, and I think that's something that should be raised too. That they also just didn't analyze the play, didn't play accordingly.
Yeah, Cubby, when you see this, like, how do you fix this? How do you fix this? Because by the letter of the law, right, it's correct. They needed to find the dead ball state. And if that's the first dead ball state, and then Karzi just decides that he still wants to go in, because if he's in the middle of Valkyring, that's not a dead ball state in my mind. But go ahead, Cubby, sorry.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I feel like locking him out of that input is weird. I also just think that, because I don't have anything to add to this. Like, I think that the answer these guys made was correct. But the only thing I was going to chip in kind of along where your head's at, T-Gon, is this one where we just go back a wave? Like, is there a default timer where if info is given, like during one of these chrono breaks or a replay, it's like, hey, just turn back the clocks 30 seconds or just go back one wave? Like, is that just a decent blanket solution?
I mean, for me, that's kind of what I feel like for this very specific case. This is like one of those weird contextual situations where I think there's about 3 different dead ball states, all of which are significantly more neutral and benefit both sides, I would argue, than what we ended up getting, right? And I think for me, that's what makes this specific decision confusing, because it feels like they just went back to the most recent dead ball state, which after skimming the rules, it doesn't seem like they necessarily have to go back to the most recent, if this makes sense. Like, again, in the span of 15 seconds, I think there are about 3 or 4 different, very specific scenarios where, because there's something going on the top side where MKOI are trying to trap Humanoid, but Humanoid is respecting the top wave, and then Fleshy hits the vision cone, so they see him. At that exact point, Moen is getting ganked bot. So I understand if they feel a little bit more, pressured to not put it before this specific moment, because then Moen just turns around and he doesn't lose his flash. But you could put it right after Moen loses his flash. Why? The minion wave is behind Vitality on the bot wave. So if MKOI, again, if Jojo wants to TP, he can make the exact same play. And the topside play has already happened. Humanoid didn't get caught by the trap. So I just think for me, it's just such a bizarre decision. The chrono break itself is fine, but the decision to put it where it was, where Vitality are already TPing down, where Jojo is already TPing down, that's really, really strange. That is the strange part about this call.
Yeah. Again, as you said, a lot of the time the referees, they're trained for these types of situations. I've heard their conversations over the years, where I'm like, man, I couldn't even imagine a situation like that coming up, because there's so much you don't know what you don't know, and that is what they're trying to figure out. They're trying to come up with all these weird situations and practice these types of calls, and this one just felt pretty hard done by Vitality for Vitality. And the other thing that we wanted to point out, and I think a lot of people in our chat were saying it just feels bad when the broadcast is kind of capitalizing on it too. You hear Jojo's comms saying, man, these guys' mentals are weak, and Merwin just kind of cackling as he walks away from the gank. And
it's a major misstep. It's a major misstep. And I don't want to like criticize the prod for this too heavily, but normally they would know way better than that. Like, I think a lot of the time, everyone that works on a broadcast is very socially aware of ramifications of showing certain things. So for that ball drop after the Chronobreak ball drop, yeah, like I think it's always gonna then spur on even more like vicious like social media debate around the whole thing. Like even when I said it, like I had like 1 or 2 MKOI fans like, oh yeah, you just hate MKOI. It's like, no, like this decision was just bad. I don't care that it happened to benefit MKOI. The decision is bad. But you can imagine if you're a bigger forward facing person than I, which is a lot of people anyway, you open your mouth about this, it's just left, right. Everyone is going to start shouting. So yeah, it's again, just more baffling decisions on top of each other.
Final thoughts here, Yamato.
No, I just thought it was. I bet Odwam getting scolded, bro. He was on broadcast saying he was saying some mad shit. He was speaking the truth, but you shouldn't on broadcast. You know how it is. I was so awkward. All the casters. They're trying to like hype the game, and they're trying to like. It's just such a terrible position for everyone. It's like it's terrible for MKOI because they won the series, but now it's like with an asterisk. But like second game, they stormed and played really good. Maybe that same game, like Vitality threw 10 times, maybe it would have still happened. So for everybody involved, it's just really strange. And I just think that you gotta have more consistency around the ruling, because I've never seen a Chronobreak that close to a decision. Like that just seems so inconsistent. Every Chronobreak I've seen is always like 5 seconds before the play, and then the play just doesn't happen. Everyone just walks away. That's like, I've heard that casting call like so many times. Oh, everybody walks away, I guess. All right. And then that's it.
Yeah. It's happened a lot before, not the case this time. And just kind of, again, it's one of those situations where I think there wasn't there wasn't illegal enforcement of the rule. It's just the rule was left a little too vague that it led to a bad enforcement of the rule. It was a legal enforcement, I mean,
if we can talk about it like this, if the fans can talk about it like this, it feels off, right? So yeah. I think putting something like in the rules or just a back burner where, hey, this is the last part where you got information, rewinding to that, I think that might be a better scenario moving forward, just to help pick a better Chronobreak time. This is going to be an issue, because if it, like, I understand this being a one-off. My fear is that if it's an issue again, if they can use the rules to get a Chronobreak timer that everyone feels like is bad, then can we build something in the back end where we can get to a better solution next time, right? Because this did feel bad, legitimately, for both teams. So, yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, that's how we'll kick things off here with everything on fire, the MKOI pause. But that's not the only thing that's on fire. And honestly, for those of you that watched Power Spike for a while, we came up with this segment mostly because, Monty was an old soul in the space. Not an old guy, but old soul in the space. He had things on his chest. He get a little upset about things, and he wants people to know how it should be, how things ran. But this week, we have Uncle Jamada here, who called this out at the beginning of the year with the way that NLC was being ran or kind of quote unquote ran. And now everything has come to a head, as a lot of news coming out of last year's most popular ERL and one of the most popular leagues in the world, NLC, has been mismanaged. People have been fired. The story is starting to come out about how they've been not paid on time and asked to do other roles than what they're supposed to. Scope creep coming on in. And so it's time for a very special segment of Listen Up, Nephews. It's Jamada going in on the NLC. Go ahead, Jamada.
I can't believe it. I'm taking up the mantle of Unk, the true Unk. Gosh, where do I begin? I mean, I know there'll be some people that will want to tune out on this because it's the NLC, right? It's not tier 1 region, but I think there's some very important, pillars I have to kind of describe to you guys. This region historically has been a very important feeder, one for players, right? A lot of players historically would come into the NLC, actually level up, end up going to, let's say, an LFL or a TCL, and then one split layer after that, they're in the LEC. So a lot of the time, or they will go directly from the NLC region straight up into the LEC. And some of your favorite players of all time have come out of this region. That's the first thing. The second thing, and also kind of structurally, a little bit closer to heart for a lot of us here, the NLC has been probably the most important feeder region for broadcast talent. Pretty much anyone who is a majority of the people who are natively commentators right now, who were either on the LPL before it was disbanded, and now we have obviously the unofficial broadcast, but the official LPL broadcast, even members of the LCK, and of course the LEC, they've all come through the NLC. This is why it is important that this region is handled appropriately. I've been calling it out for weeks. The NLC is being ran. It's a circus. It's predominantly because of our main man, Matthias Horn. I've been not quiet about calling out the very specific exec who is the responsible.
I love it when we get names. Come on now.
But this is what I think we have to do, because we can't, for me, in situations like this, right, we can't allow one individual to be the leading factor of what we've got going on. So what happened? For those who missed it, yesterday, Aragon posted on Twitter and he said, hey, the NLC were late to pay my invoice by several months, but on top of that, they haven't paid my late fee, which is, I think, I can't remember if he stated the figure, but I can tell you it's a substantial enough figure that he should be getting paid the figure. I can't remember if he listed it in the details. I know the figure, but I don't want to state it publicly if he's not stated it publicly. And then a few hours after that, Hiprain and Troublelink were both let go from the broadcast. Now, why is that important? Hiprain has been commentating the NLC and the UKLC before it, and the UK leagues before the UKLC before it, for the last decade plus worth of time. Troublelink has been on that broadcast on and off since 2020. For 6 years, she has been a part of that broadcast. And they were let go mid-split with absolutely piss poor reasons. I think Jake said it. Jake said they were let go through Discord DM. It wasn't an email. It wasn't a meeting. It was through Discord DM. We didn't even have the professionalism to go to these guys with, either a few higher ups, whatever it may be. The real way that you let go of someone with tenure like that, through Discord DM. And not only that, do you guys want to know what it was for? Creative differences. Creative differences. That is what they were let go for. It wasn't because they went on air and did something bad. It wasn't because they were on air dropping slurs. It wasn't because of their off-air. No. Creative differences. It doesn't get more ridiculous than that. And then, of course, once those guys let off, the floodgates opened yesterday, and everyone started talking about their stories and their experiences with the league, whether it be players, whether it be teams, and it got pretty big coverage, and for good reason, because again, this region, especially after last year, was in a very, very unique position where having a brand like LR and Cadril attached to it should, in almost all worlds, put you in a pretty lucrative position the following year, regardless of where you are. But that's not where we're at right now with the NLC. Where are we at right now with the NLC? The league, when Forsen and Co aren't playing, 500, 600 viewers. Just for fun, right? And even last year, when we didn't have Cadril or even post-Dom leaving in summer, even those games where, the streamer teams or the streamer personalities weren't attached to it, the leagues, the games still had, at times, several thousand viewers watching these games. So it's not like the presence is required of these streamers. The product being strong is one of the important parts. And I battled against this guy all of last year. And at first, it wasn't even a negative thing. I was very happy to sit down, and I did it for hours on end, and I tried to course correct some of the ideas he had. Where, for example, he wanted he wanted one-on-one interviews with players or even sometimes owners, obviously trying to loop in Cadril in this, but Cadril is smart enough to say no. And have them effectively flame each other to try and create artificial rivalries. Why is this a bad thing? Players aren't actors. Players are socially inept, typically. High elo League of Legends players. These guys can't like fake flame. They're not trained for that. And that was one of the key things that I'm pretty confident of what drove away LR in the first part of the year from actually committing to doing content with the broadcast. Because anyone who watched the league last year, you'll know LR didn't really participate in content after winter. And I'm pretty sure it was Matthias trying to push these crazy ideas to try and integrate LR into the league and on broadcast, because for whatever reason, despite him telling me verbatim, he has no experience running an esports broadcast. None. Zero. He forced himself into the executive producer role and was attempting to create something that had never been seen before in the League of Legends ecosystem and space. So for the most part, a lot of the issues that we're seeing right now coming from this guy who I kind of got him, thankfully, partly kicked off of the broadcast last year. Because it was ridiculous. He was coming in, and you guys here working on broadcasts, you'll know it's kind of meticulous when you plan pre-shows occasionally. Yeah. This guy was coming in, he was looking at pre-shows and going, oh, I don't like this. And he was taking it out. He wasn't consulting production. He wasn't consulting talent. And he was doing this consistently. And that's the kind of thing that causes friction, not just between production and talent, but between talent themselves. And so, thankfully, I was able... I staked my professionalism on getting him removed, is what I'll say. And thankfully he was. But then, because the higher ups, it's a buddy club, it's a boys club. Everyone says yes to anything that's tabled. We get to Stockholm, and for whatever reason, he's back in charge. Stockholm was the summer finals. And what do you know? We have invited a bunch of content creators who, mind you, all the content creators that came to the finals were lovely. They've got fuck all to do with the NLC.
Thank you, bro.
Like, Yamato was one of them, actually. Lovely, like, group of people that came and were invited, but none of them have anything to do with the NLC. We invited a K-pop group from Korea. We flew out a K-pop group from Korea. Why? All of this is the kind of mismanagement we're talking about. We've hired out a hockey stadium to run this finals out of. That probably cost them $250,000 for the day. Like, genuinely, it probably would have... If you think about the operational costs, flying everyone out, accommodation, the day rates, that, a ridiculous amount of money for an NLC finals, which you could probably just hire a convention hall for and run at a fraction of the price. But that's the kind of mismanagement that this guy was pushing. And in the off season, for whatever reason, he was put fully in charge. And even worse, it was done seemingly in a bit of a coup de grace way, where the people of the positions that he effectively took didn't even know. They didn't even know what was coming. So now we're in this situation where the NLC is entirely beholden not only to this guy and the whims of his decisions, but I guess the one co-stream team that is relevant to providing viewership to the league that doesn't even care about the league, right? At least with Cadril, at least with Dom, you could say about these two, they cared about the project that they were invested in, right? And especially even for Cadril, verbatim, he cared about the NLC at first. You can't take that away from Cadril. He was gleeful. Like, I remember I saw a clip. He turned on the NLC. He was like, "Oh my god, how cool is it to see the NLC with like 15K viewers again, or whatever arbitrary number it was?" Because he's from the region, right? He played in the region before he came up into the LEC. So everything right now happening is because of effectively a single out of touch exec. And now the one region that historically, again, provided so much to the ecosystem at large. You think about, right now in the LEC, all of the old heads that have been there forever, right? The play-by-plays especially, I will always use the example. If Medic or Dracos or Hysterics decides to hang out, who replaces them? Does anyone know? from Europe. No one's replacing them. There isn't anyone in the pipeline.
Return of Quick Shot. Woo!
Oh,
We
boy.
could only hope. We could only fucking hope. But if any of those three retire, no one replaces them. If any of the analysts retire, it's kind of a similar deal. At least, as much as I hate it, they could try and lean on the whole ex-pro player thing. They could try and grab someone who's an ex-pro and they could try and, mold them into broadcast talent. But that's not always going to be reliable, right? In the LCK. Now, granted, there were some weirder things in the offseason, and Degon, I don't want to light a fire under your ass here, so I'm going to keep it brief, but there's a reason no one directly came in off of the application that put to fill Chronicler's seat. That's just, there's not enough people in the pipeline right now that are natively commentators, and this is what the NLC at least provided to the ecosystem. This is what leagues like the LPL provided to the ecosystem. And when it's being mismanaged like that, I think it's a much worse sign for the broader ecosystem at large. And now that it's in its state, I don't know what to really say. I'm just glad that people have felt confident enough to finally start coming out and talking about the mismanagement that they've been kind of beholden to now for the last 12 months plus.
We dislike mismanagement. We dislike it kind of affecting, as you said, the lifeblood of tier 2 and the training grounds, only not only for the players, but for talent, for observers, for admins, for those future referees that are going to be put in those situations like the MKOI pause. Cubby, obviously you've spent decent amount of time in NACL and the many different variations that it's been called throughout the time. Like when you hear stories like this, what do you think? How does that make you feel?
I knew of some of what was going on with the NLC from talking with Jamada and others, not all. Sadly, not too surprised. I think one of the bigger takeaways I have from this is just the trend that Riot's gone in. I'll try and key this into something that is going to be relevant, I think, to watch for this year and next too. But between COVID and now, we saw a lot of money actually go into broadcasts being remote and trying to put on good shows. I think that I can see this from both sides of the pond, and especially over here in America, like when COVID hit, when Riot redid the system, like 2021, I was working 2 part-time jobs, but then I was able to work for, I think, 12 different broadcasts out here doing tier 3 stuff. Because there were 7 tournaments in the spring and 4 tournaments in the summer that helped teams qualify for Proving Grounds. And some of those teams were ones like e.g. their 3rd team. At one point, they had Yukino on it, but the one that took top 6 had Surdy on it, had Danny, and then was being coached by Ido. So, like, that was Riot for me, putting more support into stuff that was even outside of tier 2. Like, that year, they had a lot of teams and orgs that were participating in the ecosystem, and they had some support over it because Proving Grounds fed into the academy teams, and there were a lot of lessons taken away from that. Like, from spring to summer, the academy teams went from playing 9 games to 36 because they looked at what amateur was doing and be like, hey, we need more games for these kids to get better. There were a lot of positives from Riot. I'd say reaching down deeper into the pipeline and trying to build stuff up. Obviously, there wasn't enough money in there to really support this long term with how Riot viewed the game and how esports makes money for the game, just how they view that. So they pulled back. And I think in the wake of what was left behind when they pulled back, there is less now than there was previously in the ecosystem in 2021. Like, I think back then I could list off 2 or 3 tournaments that people would participate in outside of tier 2 to try and prepare for that. I can only really list 1 now. Just orgs that exist that it's a somewhat competitive tournament and people participate and have fun with it, right? And what I'm worried for moving forward is that this upcoming year for EU, they removed the locally trained requirement aspect to some of the tier 3 orgs that participate in the ERLs.
It's tier 2 as well. It's the ERLs as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry. There's not an official tier 2. When I saw that and I talked to a couple people that were coaching over in EU, their first impression was like, this is going to kill a lot of the ERLs and a lot of the feeder systems just because that was a big protection over there for having the native language broadcast and players that we gave every league unique value. And while there are some leagues bigger than others, the ones that are more competitive or favorites to win EUM, they still all feed into the system, right? And participates. And I really feel like Riot making that change was kind of the first change that I saw where it's like, oh, 2-3 years from now, this is not going to be as well flushed out of a space, right? And that might be an okay thing. Like sometimes consolidation is good. But I think the way that I viewed it is very much by that rule changing. It was like, okay, we're going to let these tournaments kind of fight it out for themselves, and we're going to see who emerges at the end. And for me, that's like my concern becomes that when Riot doesn't give that further support, you can sometimes find scenarios where, I mean, one league runs itself into the ground. Or I think in this case, just the system that they're setting up over there is for the leagues to try and compete against each other. And sadly, I mean, if NLC is being run like this, it won't be around for as many years because the viewership's already down, and that's how you make your money. But I think that the way that the system is built now, I very much see this like they're going to go fight against each other. And if more capable people are not in charge of these products, it's going to get run into the ground. And because this locally trained requirement isn't a thing anymore, you're going to go compete in the league that fits you as a player, as a coach, and like what you need in terms of support to try and move on up. So I think that this is sadly something that I don't see changing in the next couple of years. And I very much felt like when Riot isn't directly supporting Tier 2, because they kind of have to in order for the grassroots to feed into the best, not just for players, but as Jumana highlighted, like these are training grounds for observers, for admins, for casters. If Riot isn't going to fully support these products or give it the support they need to kind of close the gap, because it is hard to run these things individually, then yeah, we're going to see more scenarios like this. And I don't think that's good for anyone. I don't think that's good for the space in the long term. And grassroots definitely needs help from the game dev in order for it to sustain itself. And I think that goes for any and all esports. And if Riot's going to pull back, then we're going to see more of this.
Yamada, you've played up and down for your whole career, and been tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 in Korea. When mid-season kind of like a broadcast
tier 3, bro.
shows isn't that what we just said? Wasn't NLC tier 3? That's what Cubby just said.
No. All
right.
No, sorry, Jamal. Sorry, Digo. Sorry. Continue. You were saying nice things.
I was saying nice things. All right, sorry. Everyone, let it be known, Yamato would never have his career grace tier 3, only tier 1. Living in the penthouse in Korea when he's coaching Sandbox. Yes. One of the only foreign coaches to spend time in Korea, find success, motivate people through multiple... The only... He was the only foreigner to do it until that Lazy Field guy came along.
Lazy Field, you fucking me up.
With all that, when there's instability with kind of the project itself, like the production itself, the rule set itself, how does that, how does that affect you?
No, I don't know. Like I have so many ways to go, but I guess the big one is just like the cancellation of the LPL broadcast and killing that. Like that was I think that was the big issue in terms of the topic of talent pipeline and how things move on, because that's where you get your Malcolm Gladwell reps. That's where you get your outlier reps. That's Beatles and Hamburg shit. Like when you see like Hysterics and Doug the Cast, that is 10K hours in. Like they are in sync on another level. And I think that kind of told a tale of what's to come. I think in terms of Riot as a whole, it's like what has happened to the NLC. It's kind of like what has happened to the entire ecosystem, but just congested into one small moment, in the sense that it just happened all at the same time. Because it's like it could have been very easy to snowball the sponsorship money and the success that you had from this year to just make your broadcast last for the next 20 years and pay the people that deserve it, and to stay alive, to create opportunities and to maintain. But it was all spent on extravagance, like a Sword Art contract, and then like it's similar in that weight. And on the topic of like being a broadcast talent, I even know it's like Riot and the LEC and them potentially stepping in and helping NLC, it's like that is I can't, that's out of the scope. Like the LEC has its issues. They did cutbacks, they have mismanaged talent, mistreated talent, but you're not gonna hear anything from them because you are in a position where, oh, should I talk about this publicly? Then I guarantee that I never get a chance again. Because the LEC has also created a scenario after what happened with Kato that they of course they want the casting team to be expendable. Like they don't want to be in a position where they rely on anybody, and they have created a kind of a scenario where it's like if a caster wants to leave or he has any form of leverage at all, like you just get kicked out now. In the past, the name and the big names that were in the casting league and so forth, they had leverage, they had power, and it just happened too many times that the official left. What happened to Mitch, and then it's like Kato had a lot of force, and then he pulled outright because he just had super much leverage. They never want to create a scenario again where anybody has leverage, which creates a very awkward circumstance because what are you actually, what are you achieving to do as a commentator in the space? It's very, very difficult. It's cruel. It's brutal.
I think it's the worst time now ever. I don't think if you're a commentator now and you're aspiring to not for League. Like if you want to do it for a different game, go ahead. But I think for League, it's the worst time.
It's very difficult. It's like even from my position when I was trying, like I worked with the LEC for many, many times, and there were many periods where I was like, oh, can you come on broadcast here? And then you get ghosted completely, and it's like I'm just sitting here. Like I guess I'll just take it like a good dog, And I know this has happened on even more extreme versions for other commentators, and I think this is just an issue that comes down, and I think that's the saddest part because I think the death of everything is the lack of continuity. I think continuity is crucial in any love for any entertainment product. It's like I want to invest time into something and feel like it matters. When you hear the same voice, you see the same faces. The reason co-streams are so popular, obviously, Kato is super, super talented and is a great entertainer, but it's like you tune into the broadcast and you know what you're getting. If you have different faces all the time, different commentators all the time, what's the worthiness of investing your time into something? It's kind of like watching Game of Thrones and knowing that the last season is shit. It's like you can watch the first seasons, it can be amazing, but then you know what's coming, so it's very difficult to enjoy the process. And I think that the continuity is the crucial thing that I think that Riot doesn't really care for as much, and I think it bleeds into fucking everything. It's like even the LCK broadcast. I remember the good old days. Monty and Doa, you tuned into LCK, like you knew when you tuned into OGN, like you had those voices come in, and then they were like staple voices. It's like the casting crew of the LCK. It's like I know I'm gonna tune in, I'm gonna hear the casters. I know exactly which homies I'm gonna listen to, and I think that continuity is so crucial because, as you said, Jamada, when you lose the core voices now that are on the LEC or whatever, what's gonna happen? I don't know what's gonna happen. You kill all continuity, and I think that's super dangerous.
And for me, as someone who is on both sides here, like you do have continuity in the parts of the broadcast that you do enjoy. Like, when you turn on LCS, you get Flowers and Cubby, you know what kind of cast that's going to be. When you turn on LCK and you get Ox and Valdez, you're going on some very tangential ADHD rides. When you get Medi and Betty, like what you're getting out of that broadcast. And that time to allow it to grow is important, and you can only do that when you are monetizing, right, and able to create an environment with that continuity. And going back to the problem at hand, which was, hey, it feels like the highest up is spending on things that is jeopardizing the continuity because no one knows what's happening and not creating a long-term environment that allows them to preserve the continuity. That's where I think a lot of the frustration comes in and came in and is disappointing because it is dismantling one of the pillars for talent pipeline across all different roles. And that's kind of tough to see. And then in my experience with LCK so far, I've been very lucky, and it's taken some grit and taken some time learning people on the LCK side, the Korean side, the global side, which is our very small team. But everyone is pulling the same way and the right way. We try to do things the right way. And so it is frustrating to hear when my peers who are just as talented, great-hearted, don't have those same type of environments to try and grow in. It stinks. So yeah, NLC, hopefully change
It's
comes
dead, bro.
about.
It's dead,
cooked,
bro.
bro.
It's dead.
It's cooked.
There's no turning back until realistically leagues don't have the license anymore.
That's what it is. That's what I'm saying. Change comes about.
That's going to be the end of the year. So we've
I
got
feel
this
bad
for,
now, bro. We
for
just
6
killed
months.
Vegan's optimism, you know?
Yeah, no, but like sometimes you have to. Like it's not happening mid-year. Unless it would be
It's okay.
like, may God strike me down if change actually happens mid-year. Like that is how surprised I would be if we get like a mid-year license change. It is so unlikely. So unlikely.
Well, I mean, I think some of this bite would have been worse if they made some of these changes at the beginning of the year, right? But because he did it in the middle of the year and didn't pay these things and force the talent to come out and say that kind of stuff is definitely, that was definitely negative. That was Listen Up, Nephews. Everything on fire, listen up, Nephews. What a great way. Very positive thinking way to start off the episode before we even dove into some of the big games. We dove into one game and crossed a lot of different topics there. So if you have fond memories of the NLC, frustrated with how things turned out, let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, like and subscribe to Last Free Nation so you don't miss out on any of our content coming out here for you guys. All right, 2 down, a couple more to go. Let's get in there with a high key, low key, no key. We're going to go in on first stand chances for some of these teams in the West that shouldn't find themselves there. I think that's what I would classify these 3 teams: high key, low key, no key. Who you think has a high key chance of making it, low key chance of making it, and just no chance of making it? We're talking Fnatic, Team Liquid, and LYON Gaming. Fnatic, Team Liquid, and LYON, because they all find themselves in the lower bracket of their respective playoffs. So this week's high key, low key, no key, let's get into it. Fnatic and Team Liquid, Fnatic, they played their game earlier, and there was a big quote that came out of that from Coach Grabs with an interview in Spanish from our media friends over at Esports Manicos, where Grabs says publicly, "We have no staff. This is not what I was promised." And then he goes and details out how he's asking the players, instead of doing an extra game of solo queue or starting your stream right away, can you do some self-study, team study of an LCK match that maybe will help you understand something better, see something to generate the conversation, and try to promote conversation amongst each other because of some of the staff that has been missing here. And Yamato, when you hear stuff like that, and Fnatic, it just is mind-boggling that this, at one point, was the marquee organization of Europe.
If I interpret it like in like what Grabs is saying in the most good faith way possible, I think he's just frustrated that promises weren't kept. Like if he was promised something and didn't get that, that's something that has happened. It's also Fnatic classic. Like if he was promised that the staff would be larger, and then in that particular week he did mention that Gax was sick, right? He was so ill that he couldn't even watch a scrim, so he was very lonely there on the lines, which I get. I do think though, like everything else that he mentioned, it's like I have worked in very small staffs and it's been okay, like I have worked alone as a coach, and I've like gotten teams into finals or whatever, obviously different eras, and I understand a lot of teams like GX, MKOI, all these teams have massive coaching staffs, which is a massive plus for sure. But you kind of make it work, And if as I mentioned before, I want to interpret what he said in good faith, because he did say that the players are working hard, and he did say it's like not an excuse. We are just shit, and that's like what it is. It's like us having more coaches wouldn't make us great instantly. I think he's just kind of venting his frustration, because also the topic of like players watching VODs, like that's something that they need to do regardless, in my opinion. Like you can streamline that process, and them watching VODs, I think, is a part of the job, and them having to pick up slack because VODs aren't watched. It just came off as weird, but I understand it's like right after a loss, frustrated because promises weren't kept. But I do think that the team can succeed with a smaller staff too. It's like when I was in Fnatic, I was first alone, and then I was with Shaves. I've been in teams where I was very alone and I had to wear many hats. He worked with Duffman in the past, right? There were 2-man in G2. I remember Young Buck in G2 was also alone. Like there's been many 6-man teams that have been successful. And obviously it isn't optimized, but you can make it work. You can definitely make it work. And tapping into what your players should do and figuring out more ways to move your pieces, I think that's a part of the job. So like saying that, oh, I had to ask this from the players, it's strange. But I know that I don't want to make Grabs look bad, because this is just the other side of the interpretation. Just plain and simple, if I look at it in good faith, I think it's just like extremely frustrated that the promises weren't kept. But everything else just reads as weird, because I think that you can succeed in those conditions too.
Yeah, Cubby, what do you make of it?
I mean, this is a quote that you only see. Everything Yamada said about being within teams, like doing more VOD review or more stuff outside of it, that's completely normal. The only reason this came out is I think it has to be promises kept behind the scenes, and just kind of holding management's feet to the fire with whatever is missing there. I can't see this explanation for Fnatic of being, or that interview from Grabs being anything else outside of that. I think that everything he's asking for with players is, like, regardless of getting support from staff, that's probably the most common, like, post-scrim comment ever. Like, hey guys, can you self-review a little bit before we get in the solo queue or boot up a stream? Regardless of what your staff is behind the scenes, that's a comment you might hear any given day of the week if you're going to spend a day with a team or see what a coach says afterwards.
Yeah.
Look, I think Fnatic has no chance of making first stand. I mean, if we're going to return to the topic, this team, they'd have to win 2 best-of-3s and 3 or 4 best-of-5s to win EU from where they're at. And I don't see any chance of them even winning the next best-of-3 against Vitality. I think Fnatic's gone after this next week of games. I really don't see a world where they can come back. This team looks really disconnected. After, I mean, only changing out 2 members? It feels like, or 3 members, it feels like the core of what was left of this team. I can't tell what their identity is on the Rift. And I haven't watched all the games in EU, but like I can't really point to like, oh, this team does X, Y, and Z well, right? It just kind of feels like they exist, and some games are won, some games aren't. And I don't really know what the goal is for this team in terms of like, hey, they play this strat well. I can't name it, like something they do out of the ordinary well. So I really don't see a chance that Fnatic makes it very much further in the playoffs. And I think they have issues to look at when going into Split 2, if this is what they're talking about with stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I like that you bring that up, because according to Polymarket, they play Vitality, and it's 50%. It's a flip. It's just straight up a flip between
Crazy, bro.
Both squads. 50% for Vitality, 51% for 51% for Vitality, 50% for Fnatic. Jamada.
That's very generous, I must say. I'm just not surprised at all with everything that's gone on here with Fnatic. I mean, they said it themselves. Grab said it in that interview. Low resource team, and I think you can. I mean, just respectfully, man, I just even think the roster build is just weird. It's just really, really weird. If your intent is like a long-term project, I can't see the vision. I spoke about it in week 1, I think, or week 2 when we did a high key, low key, no key on transfers. I'm pretty sure I no keyed Vladdy. It was either a no key or it was a low key, and I was still saying like if I could low key it, I would.
Yeah,
and it was for a reason. You had Poby. Poby seemed like he was a driving factor. And now we're at a point where I think the Vitality thing from yesterday, they'll brush that off and get back up. And I think when it comes to taking on a Fnatic that looks as disjointed as this, hell, we might even get a repeat of the KC best of 1, where they just completely demolished them. And that was the only time this split where KC looked anywhere near out of sorts, I think we could be in for a repeat here. So I'm mega no-key on Fnatic. I just can't see getting through Vitality is going to be one thing, but then getting through MKOI, getting through potentially a NAVI if they drop down in round 4 because one of them has to go to round 4, right? And then of course KC, no way, like it's no key for me.
Then Yamada, you agree? No key for Fnatic because of kind of the makeup
bro.
of the bracket.
Bro, like they belong to the streets, bro. Like it's like, yeah, you are supposed to, like, this is supposed to be like a build project, right? You get Empiros, Lospa, but so is NAVI, bro. Like NAVI, this is their first real split. Let's be honest. The previous one with the rogue leftovers, like that shit wasn't real. And they signed the Rock, and they signed like the Rylek guy is a smurfer. You know, he's in the candidate for like best performing jungler. Like this is an insane project with pieces that they put together, and that's a real build. That's a real off season. Fair play to Navi, and they didn't have like massive building blocks. They took one of yours in Poby, and they managed to have a clear identity. Because what you said, Cubby, is so true. It's like Fnatic have nothing. Like they got into playoffs by getting a 10k gold lead thrown at them from Navi, which made their strength of schedule really, really good for the tiebreaker, which happens. But you know. A lot of their losses were empty, you know, and with that in mind, I think Fnatic definitely is the weakest team in the playoffs by far. I think it's not even close.
Real quick, where did Rylek come from? Well, I have some EU heads because this guy's really impressive. I think jungle is one of the hardest roles to transition in, and he's playing really good as a rook.
Turkish.
I don't know if you guys
was he
expected this or
before?
not. Yeah,
It was in BK Rogue, yeah. I think BK
and
Rogue.
then LFL last year, but like originally out of the TCL and that region. That's
like legitimately impressed by this guy. He's got a good mind for the game from the looks of things, you know, and that's really tough to do as a rookie at that position. I think that role is really hard to transition in.
Yeah, BK Rogue, 20 years old, which time to develop still here in EU, which leaves us with 2 teams left for all of you to decide in the NA, in the LCS region, with Team Liquid and LYON Gaming, and or LYON, excuse me, where it's kind of fascinating, right? These are 2 teams that are stacked with talent. LYON Gaming was the super team. Team Liquid, they moved on from a lot of their parts. You get Quid to come on into the roster, the best part from 100 Thieves, and they both struggled in that opening Swiss round and find themselves on the bottom side of the bracket. LYON Gaming going up against FlyQuest. DSG is the draw for Team Liquid. And I think both those squads just didn't expect to be there, right? You see Sentinels and DSG in the winners bracket, and you're kind of like, what? How did that happen? How is Sentinels in the upper bracket round against Cloud9? How did this happen? And I think both coaching staffs as well wouldn't expect that with Spawn and Reignover. These are 2 of the most respected and tenured coaches in LCS and in LoL esports. And it just doesn't quite add up. So with multiple spots there, or I guess with 1 spot there, who has the best opportunity to try and make it out from LCS? Let's start with Yamada. We'll end with Cubby. So Yamada, you're in the middle.
Good luck, bro.
No, can I put them all in Noki, or like do I have to?
No, got to.
Do I have to give one of these guys Likey? I think the realistic answer is probably TL. If we're to go off anecdotal evidence, Dom has been flying TL's flag. In the few times that he's streamed, he's been saying like TL are the best, like the other best scrim team in the league. And he is very, very confused as to why they're having stage issues, shall we call it? Because typically they just function really well, right? Quid has been really underperforming on stage. Morgan hasn't been dominating lane the way that people were thinking maybe he would come into the league like the LCS and dominate. I think in fairness, the top lane in NA is actually quite stacked individually. But even then, right? Like typically you're expending an import slot here. It's kind of the expectation. That's the floor. And then of course, yeah, like Degon, you were highlighting all of the kind of surroundings of TL, but their run immediately is just DSG in the lower bracket. Okay, no problem, right? I think as good as DSG's showings have been, right? When you really kind of dig into the teams they've played Sentinels twice. They beat them once in the best of 3. They arguably could have beaten them in the best of 5 as well. I think very fairly they had the opportunities to do it, right? I think they'll walk away from that series feeling hard done by. And then after that, it will be a LYON who they've already beat, who looks really disjointed, right? Oh, sorry, who DSG beat, and a LYON still look incredibly disjointed. And I'm not even sure they'll make it past Fly, right? Who I think TL should be able to beat Fly. As entertaining as this Fly roster has been, still a lot of issues for me where it's just like, I think they'll need time together. As a young roster, it's clear that they get overexcited or they're not as connected as, let's say, obviously your C9 in the league on certain plays. Whereas I feel like TL have at least the tenor and experience to rely on in these kind of situations, which, you know, I feel like they'll be fine. I guess I've technically argued them for a high key now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, kind of.
Like,
lock it in.
I'm gonna lock them in. I'm gonna lock them in high key. I know it's technically a low key. I've now kind of revealed my answer. I'll give LYON the low key. I've not been big on them since I've seen their first debut. Even though the 2-0 win, I think it was against Dig. It didn't look good. And I think all of the arguments I've just given for TL are things that I can't say about LYON. Even with the individual talent, they've just not looked together. This LYON lineup.
Mr. Cannon, as someone in the chat asked me to call you so that I don't confuse you and Jamada's names up. Go ahead.
Very official. No, I'm in the same boat, mostly because of Dom's commentary as well. Like, Dom is surprised by Team Liquid's level, and I do think that the roster cohesion just kind of makes sense. So I'm just waiting for things to click a little bit hard for TL. I do think the stage games look weird. Maybe in the BO5s now, you have more time to warm up. I think that they are closer to having something that works than LYON currently. So I'm gonna put TL in my high key, even though the segment of this it hurts my soul a little bit, but I get it.
All right, and Cubby, get in there, man.
Yeah, I think TL being high key is actually somewhat reasonable. I view it a little bit more reasonable as maybe where you guys are at. I'd put LYON in no key too, just because I think LYON has been kind of a gross team so far. Like the Dig series, I don't know. It's hard for me to take a game seriously when I watch Berserker cook into 4 depth charges as a Felios. We're just walking up and eating those for fun on mid-wave. I feel like that's the only reason that game was close. And then Saint has been really bad. So I don't know what happened with Saint from the last offseason and now. It looks like he has just been incredibly skill vampired. Because I felt like Saint was a really good individual in the LCS last year, and this year he has been individually actively harmful to his team. I think for TL, that loss against Sentinels, I could actually point to a couple moments in game 2 where they had a pretty big lead and they're overextending to fight for camps they don't need to instead of setting up for objectives. So for me, it kind of felt like that team is playing too fast or trying to do stuff they might be able to do in scrims when they're ahead, but not as ahead on stage. Because it feels like this team is always playing from ahead based on what we're hearing in scrims, and some of the issues talking about how they're winning too hard in scrims. So when they get difficulties on stage, they don't know how to play out of that as well, which is common for teams behind the scenes, sincerely, that does well in scrims. So I kind of felt like the Sentinel series, game 2, they overextended pretty badly twice and lost the game. And game 3, I don't like their draft at all. I think their draft didn't give them a lot of time to win the game. And they got baptized in the first play in Bottom River. So we can kind of write that loss off. And if we go off that and everything else we're hearing behind the scenes, I feel like TL just has to beat C9, who do clearly look like the best team in NA. I think that just what we've seen from C9 on stage is pound for pound better than the rest of the teams, both individually and on a team aspect. So for me, C9 are the clear favorites, as they probably should be for most NA fans. But if you come at this as like TL is the second best team, they didn't have the seeding off of that on a very short, play-in format, I guess, for the playoffs. I can still see TL as the second best team to win. And so for me, I give them a high key to get out of this. For LYON, I'm closer to low key or no key. Again, I just think that team is playing a very different game between all 5 members. And I don't think they think about the game very creatively outside of Inspired, which is something I think the old iteration of FlyQuest almost deserves more credit for. Because for me, Inspired's at his best when he gets to play the game that he wants to play. I feel like he sees the game in a very calculated manner. And it doesn't feel like LYON is on board with that. It feels like all the individuals are kind of trying to play their own game and not Inspired's game. And it hasn't looked as good for them so far.
Yeah, according to Polymarket, for both of these matches, Team Liquid versus Disguised and LYON versus FlyQuest, Team Liquid and LYON have a 58% chance of winning against their opponents. So likely that these two teams will meet in the next round for the LCS playoffs, and then will likely end up playing Sentinels, because unless some craziness happens and Sentinels gets another upset and defeats Cloud9. But I mean, hey, it's been the year of upsets and exciting League of Legends. So nothing can be written off yet. Okay. We got a couple more segments here for you, but it's time to remind you about some of our friends here on the broadcast, because, it requires us a lot of effort to power the show and make it all happen. And this little segment comes to you from our friends over at Factor. Now, cold days, big goals, no time to cook. Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs. So eat well without the planning or the cooking. Now, what goes inside are fantastic quality, functional ingredients, including lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole food ingredients, and healthy fats. No refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils. You can make meals that fit your goals and schedule that leads to healthier eating, calorie management, and more protein. And if you get bored of having the same thing, no worries. They've got a ton of variety with over 100 rotating weekly meals to keep things fresh and delicious throughout winter. And the options include high protein, calorie smart, Mediterranean diet, GLP-1 support, and ready to eat salads. Plus the new Muscle Pro collection supports strength and recovery. It's always fresh, never frozen, ready in about 2 minutes with no prep and no stress. Yamato had the opportunity to have some of those fantastic meals when he came over to the States, and can attest to how great they were.
Oh, bro, like I've had them in America. I've had them in Sweden. I've had it in Germany. And the thing is, like, obviously it's like the different food supply and all that jazz for supply chain, but like Factor is insanely consistent. Like my favorite ones are in Sweden, but across the board the quality has been super good, and I've always used it to make sure that my diet doesn't go completely, haywire when I'm traveling and I'm abroad, because sometimes I visit Sweden, sometimes I visit Dom, and Factor Meals has been insanely solid and consistent throughout.
There you go. So head on over to factormeals.com/powerspike50 off and use code powerspike50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. This is for new subscribers only. Varies by plan. 1 free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. Thanks to our friends over at Factor. They've been a partner with us for such a long time. We stand by it, and we appreciate them standing by us. So go check them on out and start eating healthy today, right now. All right, let's dive into our second to last topic here. It's a keeper kick, and it's first stand chances for a couple of different teams, right? We did high key, low key, no key on like the bottom side of brackets, teams on their last chance. How about teams that maybe surprise and find themselves on the top side of the bracket? Maybe not one of these teams, because Jamada has been riding this team for a while now. But we're talking about surprise winners, T1 Slayers, world champion Slayers, BNK FearX, carrying on the Yamato bloodline and legacy.
And so Uber.
And on the opposite side, for the LEC, it's NAVI, who have just been such a solid team, find themselves that big victory earlier in playoffs and just, again, continue to impress. So who has the better chance of making it to first stand? It's this week's Keep or Kick. Now, according to Polymarket, BNK FearX have a 5% chance of winning first stand. Right? 5% chance of winning first stand. However, you just need to make top 2 to make it to first stand if you are in the LCK, since they have 2 seeds. So, and for Navi, they have a 14% chance of winning LEC versus. And that's what they'll need to do to make it on over. So, when you think of it that way, who has better first stand chances? Obviously, maybe an easier path for Navi, but BNK, 1 win away, still have to beat either Gen G or T1 or whoever comes out of the lower side of the bracket if there's craziness out of the LCK. So, Cubby, let's start with you. Who do you give the better chance to? Who you keeping, who you kicking for making it to first stand?
You know what? We're gonna hopefully try and be a little bit different from the crew this time around. I'm gonna keep Navi. Unironically, I think that Navi, I view as LEC as being pretty wide open, and this Navi team hopping in, because in LCK we still expect Gen G to win. In fact, we probably still expect a T1 final with the rematch, even with how good the last series went. But there's something about this Navi team and the way that they're put together and the few games that I've watched over there. But I really liked how Relic's playing. And I think this team actually has a chance to make it out of Europe. I think getting through a bracket of teams that are a lot more experienced than Navi is going to be difficult, but I will still take that over beating T1 in a best of 5 2 times in the same bracket. So I'm going to go with Navi. I think Navi, unironically, could surprise coming out of LEC, because I feel like the product this team's put on the Rift, it's been pretty solid. And we really didn't have that expectation going in. So we'll keep on riding Navi. All
right. Yamato, get in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna the pragmatic way, just because LCK has 2 slots. I think it's considering how the result looked and the short turnaround. I think the big difficulty is, right, that it's gonna be like at the rematch. If I am not completely crazy, it would be at LAN, right? So BFX, that's a big challenge for them, like in front of a T1 favorite crowd, and that's like T1's dream environment. I can see the angle where we're overcoming that a second time, especially when the opponent's going to be a lot more wary of you and be in their zone, because a lot of the things that you expose one time, you're not going to be able to expose to again. Because I do think that the cooking in the draft from BFX was crazy in the series, like absolutely insane. Obviously, like blind picking Kennen into Rise Flex was dumb from T1, but BFX was in the pocket to be ready to punish. So repeating that, I can definitely see the angle, that being harder than Navi winning the LEC. I can see that, but I'm gonna keep BFX for this one. Navi still need to make it through, and I guess they need to go through the same hurdle. They need to play at LAN, and unless they make it cleanly and they qualify in a way where they win the best of 3 and win the opening BO5 if they're in the top of the bracket, and qualify into the finals like that and then win clean, then they overcome those issues very easily. But I'm gonna keep BFX for variety, I guess.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, you said it. The 2 slots does make it a little bit easier. One series win away compared to Navi needing to win against MKOI and then beat whoever wins out of probably KC and G2 and then do it again. That's a lot to ask, but maybe lesser. I mean, not maybe lesser opponents than Gen G and T1. And the cool part of the draft thing that you brought up, we were able to get Vikla on the space for a post-game interview. We asked him about that. We said, hey, who came up with that? Because that was an awesome move, and you got your solo kill on Faker on the Anivia, or against the Anivia. He was like, oh, that was me. I was like, Rise into Anivia, not so good. Rise into Kennen, okay. Yone into Anivia, very good. Clear said okay. It was good. It was such a cool moment there by Vikla, and just good to see that guy full of potential now reignited, full of confidence, and that combo was pretty deadly. Jamada, you're the tiebreaker here. Give us your thoughts and then make your pick. Who you keeping? Who you kicking?
I want to keep both of them. I actually want to keep both. No, I want to keep both of them.
Let's go.
I want to keep both of them. I think obviously, watchers, you'll know I've been big on Navi since the beginning. Pretty much as soon as I saw the week 1 gameplay, I was like, yes, this team. There's something about this team that looks way more oiled than they should be by now. And again, I think the build is incredible. I think we've all echoed that sentiment throughout this episode actually already. And frankly, I think the only team that they're competing against is pretty much KC. Like, they play MKOI whenever they play MKOI in the schedule. That's their next matchup. MKOI do have a little bit of time, and obviously so do Navi. I think it's Friday, because the schedule's weird. I think they're playing on Friday. I think that's a short turnaround for MKOI to sort out their issues, because they might have 2-0 Vitality, but they didn't look like a good 2-0 in the slightest. And I think if MKOI can't get leads, if, like, again, members top to bottom aren't showing up, if Super's not in good, like, bot lane states, which I think this Navi bot lane has been pretty damn good at kind of demolishing 2v2s at times if they're giving the right matchups. I think MKOI are in big trouble there. And then at that point, we're thinking most realistically out of that top side that KC gets out of those 4 teams into the upper bracket. I think they've got a chance. Even against the KC. I think in a best of, I think this team looks like they're willing to pick things that other teams aren't willing to pick. It looks like they trust each other a lot more. Their objective setups are significantly cleaner than the rest of the league. The way that they approach them is good. Their overall understanding of win conditions are in those team fights and engagements is really consistent as well. I just really rock with Navi, man. Like, I think that they're problem solving in situations which are suboptimal as well. You can tell that they're all landing on the same page. It's just sometimes the execution is not always 1-to-1. But being able to see that they're on the same page is infinitely more important to me. I'm going to keep Navi just for the consistency. I want to make it clear. I also want to keep BFX too, because I think they've got a chance. 2 slots, right? That's the realistic answer. 2 slots. I think it's really doable, and I don't know if T1 are going to sort out the draft issues. That's my concern. That's my concern.
They can't draft that bad again. They really can't. Like, I can't see a series where they do.
They've been doing it all bloody LCK Cup. I don't know. Like, it's not
in a way, yeah. But that was so bad. The 3 and 4 games 3 and 4 were so bad.
People were trying to pin it onto Pays, and it didn't feel like they were putting Pays in any position to play the game, right? It just felt very, very hard to play. Like, well, how can you execute these things at the times where he was making those mistakes? They're diving him under the tower when he was Jhin, and no one was to be found. Like, how he outplayed the original dive attempt on the Jhin was insane, and still no one came for like a minute, and eventually the dive worked, and it just felt difficult. And in the post-game press conference, so this one is the one open to public, Coma did the coach's job and said, yep, it's my fault. We weren't experimenting with draft. Our read was just wrong. Our prep wasn't great. And we learned, right? And I think that's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to say. And if T1 says that kind of stuff in this case, I believe it. I don't think they were trolling in the draft. I think that they didn't play their A game, but they played a win. We've seen them win with performances like that before. And then BNK FearX met them and outplayed them. It was just very, very exciting to watch. So I just find it funny that you said they're willing to play the different types of things. They're not always on the optimal page, but they're on the same page. You could say the exact same thing you just said about Navi, about BNK in their victory. And it was just, I think that's why it's so easy to root for both these squads. All right. Well, there you go. That is our week's keep or kick. We've got a waffler, one for Navi, one for BNK FearX. Let us know at home you see it and feel about it. Are you a Vikla fan that's been following him since his move over to FlyQuest and then been waiting for his resurgence to do anything? Are you a Poby fan that was like, it was Fnatic's fault? Let us know in the comments below. The fandoms run strong in this one with those mid laners. All right. Now, before we continue, it's time to remind you about our friends over at Prize Picks. Now, shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 for sports picks. It was really easy to download, sign up. It's available in multiple different states, and you've been playing ever since. You've been picking more on Luca every week, and he hasn't let me down. Make sure to check if Prize Picks is available in your state today. It probably is, because they're available in 50 states. Now, Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 or 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all your favorite sports, anything from basketball, baseball, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, esports, and more. And Prize Picks now has this new feature called early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you have the option to cash those winnings before the game even finishes. And find your community on Prize Picks. With the new social feeds feature, you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups you like, or just use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Pick partners like us and tail or fade our picks with just one click. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code POWERSPIKE to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code POWERSPIKE to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Thanks to our friends over at Prize Picks. Hope you had a lot of fun with that one. Again, it's just an additive feature to your viewing experience. Now, earlier this week, there was a post on Twitter. Gosh, just been consuming so much content. There's a post on Twitter that cited some numbers on what side, because one of the big changes that came this year was the decoupling of side selection, right? Blue side doesn't always mean first pick anymore. Sometimes you get first pick and then you're on red side. Actually, that's most of the time now. But there are very few teams that really experimented with that. One of the teams played just a couple of days ago in D plus Kia. They would have right of first selection and then select a side rather than selecting pick. So now that we're almost through this tournament and almost through this first, I guess, quarter of the year, I want to ask you guys, are you keeping or kicking right of first selection as like a fundamental part of the game? Or do you want to go back to the old way? Like, is this something that we should keep, like Fearless Draft or not? So keep or kick number 2. It's the right of first selection. Let's dive into it. All right. So, Cubby, let's start with you here. We'll go Cubby, Mr. Cannon, and Jamada. Cubby, first selection here. When you just initially thought of it, what did you think, and has it played out that way?
Yeah. I actually really like the idea, but I would probably kick it because you can't play the same game at home. But I like the idea because it decouples, I think, something that is pretty strong in League, which is blue side and first pick. Reason being, I think that there are too many mid laners in the game where you can default to getting push in mid and then it can roam to go impact bot. Now, given how the map is designed on blue side, it is easier to access bot lane through river, given the dragon wall. So if you can view that at home, kind of makes sense. You can cut through the river, whereas the shortcut to attacking red side bot lane, you have to kind of go around the dragon wall or through river. It's not as direct of a path through mid. I think that oftentimes when you take first pick, you're going to get countered in more roles. It's important to make sure you have strong blinds in places. Too many mids can give you push, and can enable you to attack bots, then get ahead of the game. Baron's easier to play on that side of the map. Why I liked it strategically is that it decouples that. Blue side also has some advantages given where your camera is and where the HUD is. It's easier to click from blue side. There's some Z access with perspective too that I'm sure that we know. I don't know if everyone knows that at home, but that for me gives inherent advantages to blue side. I thought that having the ability to play around with that and what side was good because, for example, I thought that what ended up being one of the stronger combos was unironically red side with counterpick because Dragon is so strong right now. If you take red side and counterpick and you get a bot counter, you can take a winning bot lane and play like hard for dragons early where you have better access on red side and actually stack those and have some inherent advantage, which some teams were doing. And I've been talking to a couple teams in NA who actually were doing that. So if you've gone through the homework and like who picks what, yeah, some teams were actually playing for that. Now, I just think it's didn't add enough from a fan perspective. So I'm trying to approach this more from a normie perspective of, hey, do I find this interesting from a fan at home that may or may not understand this? I think unlike Fearless Draft, where Fearless Draft gave you a ton as a viewer at home because you're going to see more, see uniqueness, and I think see more of the game that you play at home. I don't feel like this accomplishes that. So I'm okay not having this moving forward, even if I think strategically, I think this is the most fun for teams and the most fun for the league and gets you around the patches where balance can really be sided towards blue or red side. So I would like this competitively, but given it doesn't impact the game enough at home, I actually think that I'd rather kick it and just have fans play what they play at home or watch what they play at home.
Yamato.
From a competitive standpoint, I think it's really good. I think the biggest drawback is how strange it looks on broadcast. Like it's very inconsistent on broadcast. There's no continuity. I think that, in my opinion, for visibility, they probably should just do like left side first pick, right side second pick, and just add a little color annotation on something.
Did that. They started doing that on the LEC, I think, as of yesterday for the playoffs. I can't remember the exact key that they're using. Cubby, I think you know, given how I think you're
I just know LCS now. Like they're flying an upper third that dictates who picked what and where, and they're keeping that up now for the whole draft, so you can see, which helps with the clarity.
Yeah, because I do think there's improvements to do there for sure. I've seen different things on the broadcasts. From a competitive standpoint, it was very fun. Like there were elements of like as I picked side, like 5-6 games, I think 5. We were skewed towards wanting to pick red side, so we were first. We wanted red side as our color. And we were very skewed heavily towards that. In the beginning, everyone disagreed because that's in the LCK, everyone's taking first pick. But then after some time, everyone went red because it's just easier to do Drake because of the ease of access through Try and through the banana. So that's something that we focus in on. And I noticed that different teams focus in on different things. And something that came to my mind as well, because if you have right, so ROFS, right of choice or whatever, it's ROFs, you basically could choose if you want to pick side, as you mentioned with D+, or if you wanted to pick the draft order. And there were moments where I'm like, if I know the enemy team is going to pick the thing that I don't want to have, I can choose to pick color. And I think this is what D+ did if they are predicting something, because I talked to NAVI and they told me that this is something that they did, for example, against us. And I think this is something that people are mindful of. I do think that removing power from site selection is a very crucial thing. I was a big advocate last year of just doing the thing that LPL did, not in the sense that they do a 1v1 at the beginning of a series, because that was ass, because it just like delayed us. But if you have Silver Scrapes playing and Game 4 has been played and you get to fight for site selection in Game 5, I do think like my biggest problem with Fearless and side select is the fact that on Game 5, a team has a massive advantage in those BO5. So anything to remove power from that, I think makes sense. And as long as it's not convoluted and the clarity is there, I think it's okay. And I think they should keep it.
On that point, it feels like we have more educating to do on the broadcast on those powers, on basically what you guys said from the competitive side. Because if we can start with the base layer of, hey, Drake access is easier from red side if all things are equal, all champs are equal, which they're not, but let's just say it was. Drake access is easier. We know that currently in this meta, bot lane is very important. Drake stacking is very important. So therefore, red side feels a little bit better. And then, you can factor in draft at that point. And then you can factor in the mind games of what this team likes to pick. And if we want the same thing, but we have right of first selection, I think all of that kind of education starts from, hey, why does it matter if you're on blue side or red side? Picks seem a little bit more common sense especially when we're in Fearless, because certain picks are out of the meta or they want to do something unique with the draft. But in terms of like what side you're playing on, I think that stuff is still a little muddled. Jamada, get in there. Keeper kick.
I'm a bit torn. I actually want to kick it for the reasons that Cubby said. I think the fact that it's not something that is accessible at home, especially when one of the driving factors for a lot of LOL esports ecosystem changes has been to try and make the game look like your solo queue, the games you experience, whatever it is. That's a big takeaway for me. If they were to implement some kind of like solo queue system where maybe it's just like dice rolled at the beginning of each game or whatever, sure, like I'm a little bit more okay with it. I don't see it happening, but that would be the other thing. I would probably lean just a bit more into keep it, simply because I think from a team perspective, it's super underexplored, right? It feels like to me a lot of teams are just de facto going first pick, right? Because that's just how they feel. And at least to me, I feel like when I think about the game, and you've kind of gone over it a bit, dragons are way more overpowered, air quotes overpowered, right? Just because they're more central to how the game is played, even more so than before, with no Aircon, no two spawn grubs, etc. Even Herald is technically like less value than last season, air quotes, because like the tier ones are so tanky that you're not necessarily getting a tower kill off those anymore. Yes, you're getting gold, but you're not getting tower kills, and that map control is usually what can kind of lend into more map control, right? And more snowballing. So I want to keep it because I actually want to see if teams decide to experiment a bit more. For me, I think second pick is just infinitely more OP than first pick. I felt this way about red side, even when people are saying blue side is OP. I think if you're just drafting to pretty much have lane prior off red side, and you're drafting to have drafts that are easy to execute, ideally have lane prior, and you're just playing for Drake stacking, the game is just 10x easier. Like it's especially now, right? Again, with the less convoluted objectives in the game. So yeah, I'm keeping it just because I want to see if teams actually start to explore it more. Again, Navi front runners apparently, trailblazers at least in Europe for seeming to want to experiment a bit with it. I just don't see red side, blue side, and like the first pick, second pick as being necessarily equal in value. I think if you're given the opportunity to have first pick or second pick, you should always be picking second pick because you're just more likely to get good lanes. And if you're blue side, red side, if you know you're going to have first pick, you should probably pick red side to try and deny losing lanes and side that gets better access to Dragon.
I know the numbers point to that as well across all four major regions. I think the last time I checked, the highest win rate was red side second pick. You get better Drake access and more counters. I do view or agree though with Yamato sometimes that game 5 being first pick sometimes is just really OP because Fearless, you have a champ that's been denied for the majority of the series. Then, okay, if we really want this and our whole comp or like what we feel most comfortable with is dictated off this first pick on game 5, that can be really powerful to take too. But yeah, I think best of threes for sure. I was blue side biased early on because I think a lot of players, if you close your eyes and view the game, you view it from blue side, and then camera perspective and POV, like given how you click and where you click and where everything is on the game, blue side has some inherent advantages. But yeah, the Drake access with red side. I mean, this is something where again, splitting up first pick and blue side, also gives the game the option. Like, let's say for Split 2, they really buff up Grubs and Herald, and now all of a sudden, blue side has more validity, right? Because accessing that earlier on can be more power. This could be interesting to explore within different patches as well, which I think that for me is the most interesting thing to see. If they like, this is kind of divorces game balance from what pick and like what side you're on, which really help with Fearless Draft, and divorcing the game from balancing this for competitive, right? Because now we can leave some things OP and everyone's somewhat okay with it because you only see it once. It's like Azir and Orianna just get to exist in the states they're in, and it's okay, right? Like, no one's complaining about it, right? So I'm kind of interested to see if it changes as this sticks around, but I also don't think I don't think too much is lost if they get rid of it. So yeah.
The stats that you saw earlier were from TAC_01_ data analysis. Wanted to give him a shout out, tacmodel.gg. Funny enough, his tweet earlier, second tweet from posting this is C9 is being very overrated on my timeline for some reason, but has a lot of other, going at it from a data analysis standpoint. So thank you for putting that out there and just giving us an idea on the power that's been there. Because like I opened this segment with, I think the only team in the LCK that was doing side select was D+. They were the only ones not selecting first or second, and they were, I think, almost always selecting blue side in first pick when they had right of first selection. Everyone obviously generally picks like a side second because that's what happens, but they would forego picking first or second and pick side select. They did the same thing against Gen G in their series earlier this week. So just something to watch. And I guess my question to you, audience, is: do you notice this? Like, have you noticed right of first selection other than first pick, second pick? Have you noticed like teams picking what side? I'm just curious because
I've noticed a little, yeah, but
yeah.
I think common viewer no.
That's the question. So let us know in the comments. Like, is that what you're thinking there? It's kind of a curious thing that I was touching on because it will affect in these best of 5 series much later on, as Yamato aptly pointed out. All right, y'all. That is this week's episode. Obviously, we're in the middle of the unique, but I think super cool LEC schedule. Who's like, you know what? We got a bunch of games and we got to get through all of them. So we're going to play at multiple different days in the week. So I appreciate that because, as we said earlier, in terms of the development in tier 2, both for casters and for players, like when we lost the LPL broadcast, that was a ton of reps that go away. And now it's like, okay, we're getting the games in for LEC. We're not being constrained by other things. If we want to be our best format, our best broadcast, we're going to get it in as much as we can. So I like that. But that does mean we miss out on some of the other matches. So if there are any upsets, we'll cover it next week. Where can people find you in the future here, Cubby?
Mostly Twitter and Twitch. I've been doing VOD review for all the LCS games on my Twitch, and then hopefully you're going to be around a little bit more for Splits 2 and 3. Working on a project behind the scenes right now. It's taking up most of my time, and if it goes through, then we'll be more visible. But yeah, CubbyXX everywhere. Thanks for having me, guys. It's always fun to join you guys and chat. So this is fun.
Yeah, man.
Thank you, bro.
Appreciate it. Yamato, what's the game plan, brother?
Bro, we're just co-streaming LCK, LPL, and C9 games, and we're gonna be paying attention to everything that's going on. I'm cutting down. I'm not gonna live view LEC. Not gonna lie, bro. Straight up, fuck that league. Like, they didn't give me co-streaming for so long, and then like they have treated me so poorly so many times. So it is what it is. I'm moving on with my life. I'm gonna focus on the podcasts and the regions that have respect, So there's that. Thank you. Yeah.
Let me find a way. Maybe we can get BNK FearX kind of pep talk or something in there again, since you're a part of that organization legacy. We'll get you on the LCK broadcast or something.
Sure, man. Nah, bro, I can't come in and take the flip, bro. We're joking.
That's what I'm saying. I knew Vikla was going to be great. We tried to get him on our team when he was rookie here.
I've been playing with this guy for 3 years. I was on the NA, bro, flag quest and shit. Come on, man.
Jamada, what's the game plan for you this week?
Yeah, man. More like following up on the live view stuff, the co-streaming, obviously the LCS is this weekend. There will be a Love Watch on Thursday for the NLC broadcast. So
a Love Watch.
Yeah, Love Watch. Yeah, not a hate watch, a Love Watch. You know, given all of
so
the
sensual, bro.
given all of the shenanigans that have gone on this week, I'm just very curious to see how the broadcast is going to look. So you know, we'll be doing that, and then in the downtime, we're actually doing some variety for a change. Which I don't know if that's anyone's flavor, but we're playing through the Resident Evil series because Resident Evil 9 is coming out, and I think we're going to be doing coverage of that here on the LFN network. So if that's your jam, then roll through because that's going to be pretty much any day where there isn't broadcast to cover.
That's right. We are expanding into multi-game coverage, not just in esports, but just in gaming in general. We're all gamers at heart. And if that interests you, make sure to like and subscribe, not just the LFN channel, but the LFN Culture channel as well. And we'll have a lot more content coming out of the organization in the near future. LCK playoffs for me, going to be very, very exciting to see who gets to make the trip to Hong Kong and see. I'm excited to see Gen G and BNK, man. Like, Diablo is a fucking maniac. Like, it's just so fun to watch. It is so fun to watch him play. And when the rest of the team is playing crazy, like Kellen's frame perfect, Mikhail's on a hook, it is a ton of fun to watch. So I'll be there. So, all right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. And we'll catch you next week for more Power Spike. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.